All right, Stanley, you just passed the PMP exam. How do you feel, man?
I feel absolutely fantastic. I thought this day would never come, but it's here. Yay.
That's awesome. All right, so everybody's got a story. What is your PMP journey story? Like the short version. Was it straight up? What was it like for you to get your PMP?
Um, I took a course at college, and they gave me little certifications. I didn't know anything. So then I took an online course, paid about $2,000, and I was doing a test on there, and I was getting 30s, and that's only because I was getting lucky guesses. So then I sat here and said, I got to take this test, and I absolutely know nothing after taking 2 courses. God help me. And then all of a sudden, I looked at YouTube, and I seen a guy named Scott, and he was talking about how to do risk, and he wasn't talking, all fancy, talking about paradigm shift and all that type of stuff. He was talking in regular English and something that I could understand. And I'm a big analogy person. And he was using analogies to break things down where you could oh, okay, I get that. And something said, you need to give Scott a call, because otherwise you're not going to pass this test. So I gave you a call. And one thing that was really strange in the first place, most people, they don't give you the direct number. You can't get people on a direct line. Right. And then you were just normal. You were just normal talking, and you weren't just out to grab somebody's money. You say, hey, look, if we sign up, you got to commit, to doing what I'm telling you to do so you can actually pass, which also was very strange. Cause I'm like, he actually want me to pass. You don't just want my money. So I said, okay, I think this is the guy I need to go with. So, I joined the classes, which were really good, dealing with Ian and Kelly and speaking to them and going through actual questions, which is important, and understanding the logic of how you should think and how to get down to the 50-50. So at least if you can get out of 4 to the 50-50, you have a shot of actually passing. And the videos you have are absolutely fantastic, because again, you go through everything. I mean, I went through a boot camp, and right away in the boot camp, the teacher started talking about resource management. I'm like, that's like step number 9. What are we doing here? We're not even talking about the project charter. Now, when you go through the 7-day accelerator, day 2, you go exactly through how waterfall works. You go through the business case, the benefit plan, project charter, you explain it in order. Every other class I went to is like one of those cooking shows where all of a sudden they pull a cake out of the oven and you have no idea how they made it. I need somebody to show me how many cups of sugar, how many cups of flour, explain how you make the cake in a logical order so I can actually remember it. And your videos do all of that. I mean, right before the test, I looked at day 2 about the waterfall. And then I made sure I looked at what you have for Agile, and you have everything you need to know about Agile, everything you need to know. And also I did your quizzes. And like you said, hey, you want to be able to do at least a 50 and average a 78. I did that. And just like you said, if you do what you say do and follow what you follow, you'll pass. And I got above targets.
That's awesome, dude. I love the story, dude. And I do remember the first time we talked, and I do remember like you're in the coaching calls, and like, you've been in a while. How long did it take? Do you remember? I could look the numbers up, but do you remember how long it took you from like how long were you studying initially, like using the other stuff, taking other boot camps, doing other stuff? Do you remember roughly how long that was?
I mean, I was doing that stuff for like, at least like 3, 4, 5 months, but I'm telling you, I didn't know anything. I didn't know anything. I knew zero. I knew something called a PMBOK book. And then everybody's telling you to memorize all the stages and all that type of stuff. And again, with you start talking logically how things work. Don't memorize anything. And it actually worked, because just from actually understanding, where you're at. From doing the calls, you're like, okay, I'm an initiate, I'm in plan, I'm in executing. So it's a lot more logical thought process than all these gimmicks. And again, I didn't know anything. Yeah. I mean, I went from guessing 30s, where I was really just guessing, to at least immediately 56, 58 in your test, but I knew what was going on versus I'm just guessing. And then immediately I got to 78. So I mean, it's a big time jump in intellect.
Did you know anything about Agile before you took these things, you had a little taste, but like really, did you know much about Agile before you did like the Agile modules?
I knew about Agile from my job, but again, not in detail like what you're doing.
Mhm.
The module you have now for Agile goes through everything you need to know. User story, story points, exactly what is the backlog. I like to call the business owner, I call them the super stakeholder, because once I learned from you how to understand waterfall, that helped me say, okay, this is waterfall, so this is who this person is in Agile. So I was transposing it, but I wouldn't have been able to do that if I didn't know waterfall first from you. So that helped me with the Agile. And like I said, I took the test, everything you need to know. You look at day 2 and day 4 of the Accelerator, it will put you down with the waterfall and Agile, and just take your test and you'll be fine.
That's awesome, man. And then let's talk about the actual exam. Like, so what kind of questions did you face? Like situational stuff? What was the split up of the Agile and the hybrid, or the waterfall? What was it like?
Agile hybrid felt like almost like 70%.
Yeah.
That's what it felt like. And again, that's why it's important to know the waterfall and the Agile, because one question, they basically say, okay, this company's going to a hybrid. And then they say to you that, okay, A, they want to do this, and B, they want to do this. And then the question is, okay, which part should be done in waterfall and which part should be done in Agile? And if you don't know waterfall and Agile, you have no idea which part should be done in either one. That's why I tell everybody, before you take the test, go to Scott's, go to day 2 with the waterfall. Then you want to do the flow. That's day 5 in your 7-day accelerator. And make sure you do the Agile part, because that's like 70%. And then they actually ask you what is done is. Capital D, small 0, small d. You actually mention that in your Agile. And one of the questions you go over, where you actually, you ask somebody a question, that one of those questions is actually like pretty similar on the test. So what we're doing on these calls, some of the stuff is actually on there. So it kind of helps to actually know what's going on. So I actually knew I got that one right.
There you go. There you go. And let's talk about kind of like the coaching calls, because you were on, you said Ian, Kelly, you were on with me in the hard questions calls. What was the experience like, and what was the importance of those PMP coaching calls for you?
The importance to me was being able to understand the logic. So when somebody gives you a question, and then when we did it every night, you ask the question first, what does the project manager do first? What should the project manager do? And then reading the questions and seeing what's important, because a lot of times, learn from the calls, they have minutia in there, garbage, just to throw you off, like, oh, there's 5 other people in different countries, which really has nothing to do with the answer or the question they're asking you. So you learn how to go through the question and find out what's relevant, what's important, what are key things. Like, you heard me on the call tell other people, when you see May, that means risk. If they say this happened, that means issue. I learned those things from the call and going through the logic. So right away, May, that's a risk. Oh, this happened, that's an issue. So, you're not getting confused. Little keywords like that. So, for example, the pipe may bust. Well, put that on the risk register. The pipe did bust. Well, that's an issue. So you start to learn those type of things from the calls and getting your logic straight. And very important, you always get us down to the 50-50. So at least you got a coin flip, at least getting 50% right. And that's very, very important.
Yeah. And I think one of the things that's really awesome is, like, I've heard from other students, and they're like, hey man, I went to this boot camp. I'm one of 1,000 million on the call. Good for them for, getting 1 billion people on the call, but I wasn't able to talk. I couldn't answer my questions. I couldn't get anybody on the thing. Nobody chatting. Everybody's a number. You were in there like mixing it up. Like, we allow like an open kind of conversation in a very structured way.
I made jokes. You have 3 people discussing the answer. Sometimes you ask for 4th, 5th opinion. Then if we didn't like the answer, we say why we didn't like it. So, you really get a chance to analytically think about what's going on. And I think that's really important. And also you have like camaraderie, where like, everybody. Like Tyler passed the test before me. Me and him talked about it before I took the test. I know right now Kim House is on Kelly's class. She want to call me. So it's like a, it's like a community. Everybody knows your name.
The weird part is like, just by opening the doors and letting people be themselves and following a process, it's just like people stare like, okay, did it ever feel like you were being judged or anything? Like, oh, you missed a question or anything?
No. I mean, actually, I know from Ian class, Ian always like to say it's good when you mess up, because then that way we could find out how we should be thinking.
Yeah, there
You
you
know,
go.
because if everybody's getting it right, you really don't learn anything. You learn about how to fix the car when the car actually breaks. Oh, this is where the oil goes. This is what the spark plug does. This is why my car not moving. The tire's flat. You know, you learn from the car breaking. You don't learn anything if you just keep driving it. So yeah, you learn more from the wrong answer than the right answer.
Yeah, I love the examples, by the way, Stanley.
I'm
Like,
like you. Look, I'm like you. I'm an analogy guy.
yeah, dude, I'm taking that one. And so, I mean, that's part of, like, selfishly for me, like, the more we let students talk and get in there, and it's like, oh, like, you know, you get all these beautiful, like, little metaphors that, like, you could test on other people, and then it goes. And the cool part is that I find out is, like you said, Kim, and you're talking to all these different people. It's like all these little communities are erupting underneath. It's like, ooh, I like the way that guy talks. Like, maybe I should talk to him. And you guys are getting together and you're building each other up. And then it comes back and it's like, you're even telling me, hey, this person's taking her test tomorrow. She's going to pass. Like, all these, it's super awesome. Like, I'm super proud of you.
Yeah.
What are some mistakes? Like, people out there, there's a lot of noise in this world. There's a lot of things that, like, dogma or the internet tells us about preparation. What are those, like, what's one giant mistake that people can make as they prepare?
I say one giant mistake that people make as they prepare is they think they can get by, in my opinion, without doing the quizzes. Like, you have the random quizzes. I think they're important because you're learning stuff in the back of your mind. You don't think, well, I'm procurement. I don't need to know about procurement that much. I don't need to know what tornado diagram is. And then they have these questions on a test and they're asking you the logical questions, but well, we want you to take a look at a tornado. I don't know what a tornado diagram is.
Yeah.
Oh, procurement. I'm not sure what procurement is. That comes from the quizzes and getting your scores up so you know what procurement is. You know what a burn down chart is. You have to know these things. You need to know what EVM is, what positive is for SV or SPI, which is, you know, and you need to know what negative is, because that used to mess me up. Like CV or CPI, negative means over budget.
Yeah.
You know, so you got to take those tests that you have, the random tests, and like you said, get to a 78. I did that and I passed and I over exceeded. So you need to listen to the program, follow the process. Don't think, I can take a shortcut. It doesn't work like that.
Do you think that, so a lot of people say, like, oh, I can just memorize my way to the PMP. Do you think that someone should or could memorize their way to the PMP?
I'll be totally honest with you, no. I didn't learn anything from memorization. Even I went in to take the test and I wrote some formulas down. I didn't even use them. They were more or less asking me if the CPI is below 1 and the SPI is above 1. I needed to know what that meant. Otherwise, I could not know what the actual answers were. You need to know where you're at and how it logically makes sense. Like, for example, with the risk register, and I know you use the analogy stuck in my head about you make a plan. So when the risk comes up, you reach into your quiver, you take a bow and you go like this and you shoot something. Well, what also came up to me, like one of the questions was, if the risk plan doesn't work, what should you do? Should you do this? Should you do that? And what came in my mind, if you shoot a bear with an arrow and it keeps walking, shouldn't you kind of find out, maybe next time I need to get a double barrel shotgun.
There you go.
So that came to my mind about going to the quality and checking what you have for planning your risk to make sure your risk plan actually works. So that's called, analytical thinking. And that comes from your class, that comes from your analogies. If you don't have this critical thinking going on, you can't answer those questions. And then also you have 4 hours, 180 questions, and believe me, it goes real fast. So you don't have a lot of time to sit here scratching your head.
That's awesome. Do you think you became a better project manager by studying and going through this process, like the 7-day accelerator?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Could believe me. I gotta be careful what I say. Working with a lot of different project managers, some of them don't even have risk.
Yeah.
Like, that's important. You need to have risk. You need to have a risk plan. You need to have your, a matrix of, what is supposed to actually be, a requirement. If you say you're making an SUV and you got a backup camera and an air condition, and then the SUV comes out and there's no backup camera, well, wasn't that on the requirements matrix? Who was in charge of that? Stanley. I mean, all these things you learn that sometimes, even when you're taught on the job, they don't really go through it the way they should go through it. And that's why, even though I passed, I have no plans of really going anywhere. I'm still going to be around, going back and forth, because this keeps you sharp.
I love it, man. And we're just going to keep, like, that's the thing that's been super duper awesome, that it hasn't been like well, first of all, it's not just like, oh, there's a number, like this many people took the test or bought the course or whatever. Like, we have it's written awesome that we have like relationships with people, and a ton of them are sticking around. And now that's like, okay, so what are we going to learn next? And so we're rolling in on all this new stuff, and we're bringing in super, super smart people to add content and content and content. So that's sweet. So let's say, let me see. So for people out there that are like close to their exam, what is super important for like exam day? Like what was your exam day routine? How did you go through it? How did you make sure that you were ready and that you succeeded on exam day?
What I did for exam day, which first time I took the exam, which I didn't do, I was just cramming. I didn't do that for exam day. I made sure I went through your waterfall video. And it took me 2 days just going through it, because I wanted to make sure I understood waterfall. And then you go through like the risks, you go through the requirements. You actually, it clicked in my head when you went through the course. This is where analogous is. This is where bottom up is. This is where 3-point theory is and parametric. Oh, it's in course. So I made sure I understood all these different things, where everything went. I made sure I went through the Agile piece, because I know it was going to be on there, and I did all the tests. I did the day before, I did one more of your random 50s, and I got a good score. The day before, I said, I'm not going to do no random one, because you don't want to have a bad score, because that's going to mess up your mind. And I did all the study and preparation. I just watched a few videos and just relaxed, because at that point, if you don't know it, you don't know it. And I did go through a few keywords like velocity, you'll see, you will see, Tuckman's ladder. They will mention personality tests, things like that. So, you just go through those different informations that might pop up. But besides that, just kind of relaxed.
That's awesome, man. So just relaxing, because you know it at that point, and you're just going to roll and be yourself. Yeah. Simple as that. All right. So to close us out here, there's a lot of people out there. Some of them are early in the journey. Some of them are in the fight and they're just lost. For those kind of people, what would be your recommendation? Stanley's final recommendations, like what should they do to get on the path and actually be smiling and confident and know the stuff like you do?
Well, go to Scott Payne. I keep it real. I was in my boot camp, 4-day boot camp, 8 hours a day. Everybody scratching their head, drinking coffee, pulling their mask around their neck. And I was answering the questions, and I was actually teaching the teacher. And then they came to me and said, how you know all this? I said, a guy named Scott. Nice. That's where I learned it all. That's how, I got a person into your class, because, she had one more time to pass. I said, hey, felt, my heart went out to her. I said, hey, you need to get with Scott. I said, everything you see me doing, I got it from Scott.
Yeah. That's awesome, man. Well, Stanley, I'm super, super proud of you. You did amazing, above target. That's, should be super proud. What an example. Like, you went from like, honestly looking at yourself and saying, man, I don't know anything. I'm like kind of confused, but it was already the way, from my perspective, it was already like inside of you in a sense. Like you have a logical mind, you have a metaphor type mind, you have the way to pull it together, and you have the desire. And then all we had to do was like get the puzzle pieces together and line them together. And then you're like, I got this. And you were never afraid to go out there and say, no, I see it this way. Like, let's chew the fat. Let's go back and forth. And like through those conversations. And the other thing that I talk about, thinking about you on the calls, is you were always there to like help other people. Like you're like, oh, you weren't like, oh, I got it right, you got it wrong. You were like, this is the way I said, no, you missed one word. Take a look at this and you'll get it right next time. And it was like, that was sweet that you were like sharing. So,
well, like I said, when I came to you, I was getting 30s, and that was just luck. Yeah. So when I know where I came from, I can't sit here and, throw darts at somebody. Again, I learned like everybody else, but again, you showed me how to make the casserole from the beginning. Everybody else is pulling the casserole out the oven and say, here, look, that's not teaching me anything, so you need somebody to teach you how to actually make the casserole. And the thing that's great about your site is you can go back as much as you want, rewind, replay, which I've done many times. Yeah. My son, like, who's that? Is that Scott again? Because I'm playing everything in the background. I think he knows you. So, even now I could go look at Agile. If I get kind of confused, go back and play it. And like you said, you get more content on the site. You have the new 7-day accelerator, which is even better than the old 7-day accelerator.
Yeah, man.
And I'm looking at maybe getting Scrum Master, and you got all that stuff there.
We're going there next, dude. Yeah.
I don't have to go anyplace. I go one-stop shopping, super shop, right? Superstore.
Yeah, there we're going.
Super Walmart.
I appreciate Stanley. I appreciate this. Will not be the last time we're talk. If you need anything, you know where I am. And yeah, I'm super happy and proud of how you did, and it just means a lot. So, good job.
But one question I do have for you, Scott.
All right.
Where you do an analogy about Jiminy Cricket on the shoulder of Peter Pan. I'm like, Jiminy Cricket.
Did I say Peter Pan?
That's Pinocchio.
No. I said, well, I talk fast, by the way, occasionally, and I got that thing in my head. Did I say? I got to go back and edit.
You said Jiminy Cricket on the shoulder of Peter Pan. I said, that's Pinocchio. What are you talking about?
At least, so maybe that was some kind of trick inside my mind to say, do you? So what does it mean? Like, what I was trying to get at is like Jiminy Cricket's like the conscience of.
The analogy was great. It's just the wrong character. Peter Pan.
I got to go back in there and have like a little thing put on there to be like, Scott made a mistake. He meant Pinocchio. I mean, I got kids too, so I saw. But yeah, like that was one where when honestly I was in class like a while ago, and I was like, because I just go back and I find smarter people than me, and then I was like, oh, this I kind of see it as because someone couldn't understand like what a Scrum Master does, and I was like, it's kind of like the thing on your shoulder, and so like the Pinocchio guy, I was scared to make the mistake.
Jiminy Cricket, yep.
Yeah, Jiminy Cricket. Yeah, and so then. Thank you for correcting me, Stanley. I appreciate it. All right, man. Well, I'll talk to you again. Thank you very much. Great job. And yeah, talk to you soon, man. See ya.
Hey, thanks a lot for all your help. I appreciate it.
Yes, sir. Talk to you soon. Adios.